So, we've got 3 packages today, one of which doesn't have anime in it, but I'll show what's in it anyways. So those would of course be the 2 packages with anime in them. So you can already see it's not too big of an update this week. But this one's fun. So this would be the non-anime stuff. We've got Guardians of the Galaxy, which since they have the Blu-ray 3D and Blu-ray separate from the DVD, I of course got both. It's a fun movie, so I'm definitely looking forward to rewatching it again. And then another anime that arrived. So let's turn that over and start with the bottom of the pile. First, we've got Infinite Stratos 2. This is English dubbed, which makes sense because I do believe the first season was English dubbed. Not that I can remember first season too well. We've got Dragon Ball Z Season 9, which should finish the Blu-ray release of Dragon Ball Z. A collectible card game sticker. Let's see if I can take this off. Oh, I felt the sticker falling apart. It feels weaker than some of those other stickers that have been on here, unfortunately. Which means I might not be able to get this off. One clean swoop. So far, so good. A little sticky residue there, but there's a little bit at the top too, but there we go. Regions A and B. Trying to see if it says on the back somewhere here which episodes are on it, but maybe that's on the inside. I think last time I speculated this should be the last one, especially since it's content-wise what should be the last of the series, and I don't see how they could even release another one. Oh look, Piccolo. There we go. Yeah, 291. Goku's Next Journey. Was there 291 or 292 episodes? Well, the discs are fairly plain. I think they've always been. But there we go. That's Dragon Ball Z finally released on Blu-ray, although it's not the levels release they were doing before, which was of course nice. And then of course we have a Ranma half. This is the Blu-ray release. It's being re-released on DVD as well, but I already have all of it on DVD, so I'm sticking with these releases. So of course we got the back here. Look, it says Region A right there. And I guess traditionally I've probably... right there. Doesn't have to go searching very far at all. Traditionally, I've been bringing in the other Blu-ray releases, since they do have this neat thing going on here. And I was wondering about Ranma's dad being on there, and it looks like he's been on there for all of them. So now let's take a peek on the inside. Region A, of course. Have I been getting these? And then Nice booklet. Fairly simple. Alright, and last but not least, we've got the Kite Blu-ray, the inspiration for the live-action movie. So, it wasn't just my perception. There was an intentional timing going on here in which the release of Samuel L. Jackson's Kite... I'm not sure if he owns it so much as he's a big name I associate with it, and I remember hearing he was really interested in it, but Kite Liberator was released on Blu-ray, and then Kite was released on Blu-ray. And for this one, people were definitely asking what version it was. Somebody else said it was the remastered edition, and I'm pretty sure they're saying that because it says Kite Remastered there. But looking at the contents, it was actually the old edited version. There's basically a scene in each episode that you can use to kind of tell them apart, and then of course if you want to just very quickly verify whether or not it's an edited or hentai version. Well, if them releasing it under Anime Works wasn't enough for you, then there is a scene at the very beginning of the second episode in which you just very briefly see two office workers doing it. So what I mean by Anime Works is that Media Blasters, if they release something under their Anime Works title, then it's not a hentai. If they were going to release it under hentai, I believe they release it under the label Kitty Media. Now as for why I'm saying this is the edited version as opposed to the remastered edition, I've always talked about how there's 4 different versions, and they, I guess while I'm talking about this, I can go ahead and scoot on over here. You can kind of rate the 4 versions in a prudish scale, where there's 2, for the DVD releases, there's 2, edited versions so that it can be sold as a non-hentai, and the difference is how much they're willing to show. Little boobage on the old edited version, but they generally don't try and show most of that stuff. Whereas the remastered version, they are willing to show a bit more, but just no sex. Then director's cut version is willing to show sex, and then the uncut version is willing to show the complete flashbacks that show that the young Sawa was molested. So basically, if you take a look at the second scene in particular, you can see the dialogue between Sawa and whoever the person that she keeps doing it with. I'm not even sure why I remember only the one name, because I haven't watched it in a while. I just popped it in to look at the scenes to see what I could make of it. And when it flashes back and forth between them talking at the near the very end there, that's from the old edited version. I fired it up to double check. Whereas in the remastered version, you see her there curled up after the act, and they're just sitting there talking. So you see more of her in the remastered edition. That's a dead giveaway that this is actually the old edited version. Now, as for the Blu-ray quality, it's kind of interesting. Unless this is some sort of bootleg, which I don't think it is. I didn't order it from Amazon or TRSI, but rather a second seller, and I don't think they're in the business of selling bootlegs that look exactly like the real thing. So I'm pretty sure this is the real thing. The quality is interesting because they warn you at the beginning that they couldn't get good sources for everything, I guess. So some of it is definitely really good quality Blu-ray, and occasional scenes are actually the old quality DVD. And it's kind of weird going back and forth. But there's some scenes that are really, that you can kind of appreciate in there. I mean, I didn't watch it completely start to finish. But when you notice the difference, you can kind of appreciate what has been improved. I don't know if I want to go into a lot more detail. I don't know. As for everything else, let's see. I'm trying to remember why, because it looks like I've only watched two anime. I watched Diabolic Lovers, and I think that series is probably okay if it strikes your fetish right, but there's not much of a catch to it. It's rated pretty lowly because outside of people who are really interested in uh, one aspect that Twilight has, which is that, well, no, Twilight doesn't really have it. It's kind of like Twilight insofar as a depiction of a not particularly healthy relationship for the purpose of fulfilling a need for people who watch. In the case of Twilight, it's just controlling a controlling stalkerish behavior. It's like, oh my, that's cute. And this one, it's just she says no, but the vampires bite her anyways. And when you go on with the idea that vampirism is kind of an edge of sexuality sort of thing, where if you think of the classic vampire, that would be something that the big, dark, strong, mysterious, powerful, wealthy man sneaking into the house who wants his way with the woman or whatever. That's it seems highly applicable in this case since verse harem is supposed to be about the girl, and for me, it's not very watchable because if you're not into that sort of thing, that she says no, but they drink her blood anyways, then two problems. One of them is you kind of instead you kind of wish she was helped. You want to help her, and you don't find much satisfaction in her not being helped, I guess. The second issue is that you kind of need something else to hook you on. So a lot of anime like this try and play different sorts of games where it's not a constant damsel in distress that you're watching. And people who watch it don't watch it because it's a damsel in distress. They watch it because these cute guys are having their way with her. They can't control themselves, something or the other. Something along those lines. And so if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, it's probably going to be perfectly fine. But I expect the vast majority of people who watch anime, at least, well, maybe vast majority isn't the right word. Maybe it's just a pretty big majority, i.e. mostly male viewers or something like that. So I can understand why it rates pretty lowly, because for somebody not into that sort of thing, it's going to fall a little flat. But for those of you who do like it, you might actually enjoy it. It's a bit strange. The episodes do feel short, but that's because they are short. Instead of being 23 minutes long with opening and ending, it's 15 minutes long with opening and ending. So I'm guessing it was for a half hour block or something. Oh, just guessing. Beyond that, I watched a couple episodes of Stella Women's Academy High School Division Class C Cubed, and that's been pretty entertaining so far. Nothing that particularly grabs me in terms of, oh yeah, this is kind of an interesting gotcha that would be for people who aren't particularly interested in watching cute girls doing things like I guess that would be Moe Blob, right? Although that could always just be that the humor isn't entirely in line with what I would find. I think there's some humor going on, but for me it's just kind of fun to watch them. Although, again, if I'm only a couple episodes in, so I haven't seen a whole lot more. And it's kind of interesting because I think earlier this year I mentioned getting together with local anime watchers from the Austin area, and we watched a bunch of first episodes for a newly airing series. And so there was one about another one about girls who were shooting each other with airsoft guns, I guess, and that's pretty much the same thing as this. Not a big surprise, but it's kind of interesting how there's little bursts like that. It's sort of like Armageddon and Deep Impact came out at the same time or something like that. I don't know. Beyond that, I guess it's just mostly been non-anime stuff I've been watching. I mean, I think I mentioned last time watching The Strain, and that one maybe I didn't mention. Because the creature designs are definitely neat. And some of the zombie apocalypse concepts are neat. But I thought a lot of the drama was kind of eye-rolling, and I don't know. There's always a mix of things. Like when they have the wife who's divorcing the husband, and the reason I think they were giving us is that he just works too much. It's sort of like I don't really like it when characters don't appreciate how much hard work somebody does. And in this case, maybe he's doing a little too much. Um, maybe he is working a little too much, but you always have to wonder what's driving somebody to do that. It could be fear, stress. It could just be that was the kind of job they had. And so, to me, that entire concept at the very beginning is like, oh god, they're setting up another stupid wife who's wanting to trade up and doesn't appreciate what she does have. She wanted another guy who makes the same thing he does, but he gets to be home most of the time. Of course, that guy ended up being an asshole, and there's a lot of the drama that's just frustrating, and I don't think it was particularly convincing. But outside of that, the zombie apocalypse concept was actually interesting. And creature design was actually pretty great. Although I'm not a big fan of the tube thing coming out of the mouth people. I think that's something Del Toro does it likes. I think he did that in Blade 2 as well. But interesting series, has its flaws, but has its appeal, and I guess that's one season down. And if there's going to be a second season, I would definitely be interested in seeing more. Let's see. I also watched the fourth season of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, and it didn't seem like it was as good as the previous seasons, but it still seemed pretty watchable. Again, one of the nice things about My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic is even if you're not super into the series, it's the kind of thing that you can put on in the background and soothing, entertaining, and when good episodes come up, you absolutely enjoy them. There was the Weird Al Yankovic episode in this season, which is, of course, interesting. I say interesting because I was remembering thinking that sometimes you felt like it was definitely him singing songs, but then sometimes it felt like maybe he was being held back, or maybe he didn't have complete control over the song. It's hard to say for certain. But as for series, yeah, I guess I watched a lot of non-anime series because I also watched the third season of The Legend of Korra. And it's definitely no Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I think I've said that about everything about Legend of Korra up until now. Like, there does seem to be a bit of a theme going on from season to season, but it's hard to say that it draws you in, and it's usually not about that moment to moment. And I guess it's okay to talk about that theme, isn't it? Because the theme is basically, as the world advances and modernizes, is there a need for the Avatar? That seems to be the general theme from season to season, just approached in very different ways, I guess. Whereas if you look at the first Avatar: The Last Airbender, the theme there is the Fire Nation has been at war with the entire world, winning, and our main characters are on the run from the Fire Nation. And usually from episode to episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's still an underlying theme that you always have to deal with. Whereas in Legend of Korra, I mentioned this about the first season where and instead of being something where that's a constant problem, instead it's just things keep happening. And so it doesn't have a good feel for what kind of series it wants to be. In the case of Avatar, the characters, even if they could completely kick the butt of every Fire Nation individual, even if they get that powerful, it's still something where they're still usually playing sneaking games because they don't want to engage in confrontation if they can help it. Partially because of humanitarian reasons, and partially because they're generally really they are completely vulnerable in many ways. So, and of course, if they ever get more powerful, then of course they have more powerful enemies. But blah 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 blah. You kind of always feel that conflict there, and everything in the story, every twist is just building on these everyday conflicts they have. So it's with Legend of Korra, it's more like there's an overall story per season that has to do with that theme, and there's things that happen during the season that's related to it, but what the characters are doing isn't very related to it. Instead, they are. Um, this is first season again, because first season is a really good example. You start watching, and you're like, okay, am I learning? Am I watching a series where the Avatar has to learn how to be the Avatar, or am I watching a show, a sports show? Am I watching a kid detective show? Am I watching a war revolution show? You know, it kind of changes as it goes, and it's not particularly long for a single season. It's hard to look at and say, oh yeah, this is really grabbing me. This is a good narrative, which is unfortunate because it's full of really good ideas, and that seems to be what kind of holds it down, I guess, is it explores ideas, and this exploration of ideas is neat, but it's not as fulfilling and thorough as the original Avatar: The Last Airbender was. And the third season continues it. I'd say that narrative-wise, the second season of Korra had a bit more of a draw to it. So the third season kind of took a step back from there, but took a step forward in a different way in terms of if they were going to spend time not enthralled in a story that's part of their every episode lives, then the third season kind of covers concepts that I think are satisfying to watch in a kind of different way. A sort of, I like that. Yes, keep experimenting with this stuff. I'm curious. I just don't want to say too much details because I don't want to spoil it a whole lot. And you can definitely tell what I mean with the third season in terms of the overall season conflicts not really being a part of the main characters' lives, in terms of the main characters are completely unaware of the finale building up, but we, the audience, are. And they're playing around with ideas in terms of setting that up. And there's only one concern I have there, maybe one and a half, but overall good. So obviously there was a lot to talk about with that one, because that one was truly a mix, right? And so outside of that, I think that's everything I've done. I guess the reason, oh no, actually that's having watched a lot of stuff, but outside of that, I guess the reason I haven't watched a whole lot of anime is just because, well, like Stella Women's Academy High School Division Class C Cubed is subtitled only, and sometimes I'm just doing way too intense Minecraft things. Like last night, I was retracing some of my steps. I had originally tried to map out some area. I've got an auto mapper on my for my personal Minecraft server, and I wanted to get a lay of the land at one point a couple weeks ago, and I had passed a horse, but I was trying to get back home because I was supposed to be doing something else at the time, and it turned out the biomes were a bit bigger than I expected. So last night I tried to go and find that horse again. Instead, I found a pack of 6 donkeys, and then 2 other horses, and then wolves, and I tamed them, and I was dragging all 10 of those things back home through force. And if you ever tried to lead something in Minecraft on a lead, then you know just how frustrating that can be, and time consuming if you're really far away from home. Oh my god. I went into every river I could find just because dragging them through water turned out to be easier than walking on land. So things like that, which require me to focus intensely on Minecraft, prevent me from watching anime. And that's just the way things are sometimes. But I guess that's everything. Again, I guess if Guardians of the Galaxy is the only new non-anime thing, then that means that I'm probably going to be watching anime. Again, Infinite Stratos 2 is dubbed, so that would be a really good thing to put on. Maybe I've got a lot of stuff I can watch. So, I'll go ahead and end it there, and y'all have a nice week.